Go ahead, do your introductions, and I want to say a piece.
Yes, sir. Top side, right side of the map, we have Senior DeftJackal playing as the French, running off with some vills on the sheep. On the other side of the map, we have somebody who's already won in my heart, OpDVlaM, playing as the holiest of Roman empires. And he picked the color yellow because he's a Chad. Yeah. I love the Holy Roman Empire. I love the color yellow on him. And I know that Tim is a big French guy. I don't know how he feels about teal or cyan or whatever on him.
Yeah, I mean...
But yeah, that's our players.
It does go a little bit with the French, but I want to give a little backstory on OpDVlaM because I was having a chat with King Smurf probably around Christmas time, and I forget whose chat we were in, but we were both drunk and talking. I was chatting, it was a great time. And he was telling me, because OpDVlaM has not played in one of these tournaments very recently, he has been grinding super hard and getting into that, and I know this is a 1475 cap. He has been pretty close to that 1475 cap, and I remember him playing in some low ELO tournaments from months ago. So he's been improving a decent amount. So hats off to him in reaching a higher ELO, because I know he put the work in. He's got quite the matchup here and might be battling uphill against DeftJackal and French player though.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a matchup that technically favors the French. Nice little sheep trade-off here. The old drug deal going down. Interesting that they both went for two... Can I get off of here? Hello? Thank you. Both went for 2 scouts. Which is kind of interesting that they both did it, because there's like no way they could have known the other party was going to. Mr. Merlin raiding in though with the 286 friends. Merlin, I hope the tournament went well.
Yeah, hi everybody coming in from Nomadic Clash. Who you just heard was Caleb Calamari, and I'm 10-4 Tim, and we're casting low ELO Legends. This is the top bracket. We are doing Swiss. We are in round 4 of our Swiss. This is elimination time. Coming at you in a French and HRE matchup. Now, you're the HRE guy, so when you're playing against French, what are you doing?
Crying.
I would too.
Yeah, I mean, it feels really bad, because, I mean, you have to, so as you can see, he got the amount of gold he needed and then fucked off to the trees. Because you will just die if you stay on there trying to go fast castle. So he's going to go 2 TC, which you kind of have to do against French anyway, because you're probably going to know that the French are going to do it, and they're already beating you in vills anyway, and so you got to try and get semi-match that with your prelates, hoping the Aachen can get you some good stuff. But decent Aachen placement here. Speaking of that, gets the stone and gets the wood, so that'll help a lot with the 2 town center build. And I do agree with the choice of the 2 town centers into the school cavalry, because this is going to be much more difficult to raid. And this being on the backside, you'll have to kind of run all the way around. So, you know, good start, good plays by OpDVlaM so far, to my understanding, and it looks like the French are doing something pretty standard as well.
Yeah, I know when we're watching HRE, we got to talk about spawns a little bit, and although you talked about the Aachen Chapel a little bit, this gold mine up here, not the most fortuitous gold spawn
No.
for an HRE player, and that will be heavily rated upon. And I do see where is he going to go next when you're thinking about being the French and being an aggressive feudal civ player. If you're going to get rid of one resource, you got to think, where's your opponent going to go afterward, because they got to get that resource somehow. A little bit of a gold here on the east side, looks like southeast of OpDVlaM's base, but they're still pretty out there too.
Yeah.
I think if DeftJackal's able to pull off a good timing French push with just your typical knights and archers, it could speak for an OpDVlaM essentially loss and maybe out of this tournament, depending on his record.
Yeah, and the spearmen coming down. I mean, this is what you have to do, right? You have to get these people on here, and that's why the 2 TC tends to work really well, because you already have people for the wood. Yeah, second TC over here, I think, is not a terrible idea, because you have the deer as well. You protect some of that wood line again, and you get that other gold. Because obviously this one out here gets you basically nothing. So, yeah, High Bear, good call out there. Yeah, and I think getting the spearmen out to protect this, because obviously this is the exposed point. Let's take a look at some vision here to see what we got going on. Don't know if the damn observer can't see what's going on here, but he's going to look back and find it now, and does see that he's on stone with a pile of them. So we'll be sending that knight maybe around that direction, but definitely knows that he's going to have a long road ahead of him to get back there. OpDVlaM already at 308, and will be at that 350 mark very shortly to get that second town center up. So no raiding coming in to deny anything, and that's why the second town center is good, particularly when your stone is on the backside of your base.
Yeah, DeftJackal caught wind of it probably a little too late. So it's not just about stopping him from stone gathering at that point, because all good players, when you're scouting, you're clicking on the stone to see how much stone was actually gathered. Now you're thinking about stopping the TC from actually getting built in the first place. Just because of Season 3 getting started, these TCs, a little bit longer in terms of building time, and he's got a good 9 villagers on that. I think because of the spearmen, and OpDVlaM's doing a good job of escorting these villagers, DeftJackal doesn't seem to have a good angle, and this TC is going to go up pretty easily.
Yeah, still would have preferred it on this backside, but not, it is a second TC, and it does secure him the gold, which is the important part. Because now you can essentially just go straight to castle, as long as you don't see, like, huge piles of guys coming out. Which, he saw a couple of them, but he has a scout over here checking around. Knows that he's not having any of those archers coming out, not doing any of that archer knight feudal push stuff. Tower did come up. Looks like he got a couple vills already. Maybe one on this tower. Maybe over here. Hard to tell when we're not looking at the action exactly happening. But yeah, the knight's just doing some circles. Maybe hoping to catch some stuff on the distraction side. Coming in. Good pull. Didn't lose anything. But does, again, does idle them for, 2-3 seconds, which matters over time. Let's take a look at DeftJackal, and it looks like he's going onto the stone himself. Will be a little bit later of a town center, which feels a little weird. I guess those knights delaying it just a little bit. I don't know if this how late this is compared to normal French, Tim, but...
Well, if you're DeftJackal, and I was going to allude to this point, and you see the second town center coming for HRE, there's a couple things you could do. First being that TC is a little forward. Maybe DeftJackal might have the opinion to start getting some production buildings in, start amassing a force, maybe get a ram, try to take down that town center. Probably going to be a little bit too late to do that, so I think he goes with the correct choice, gathering stone, going for that town center. And this is a pretty standard French 2 town center kind of build here that I remember Divine doing, where, you're getting enough food for your 2 knights, and then you're just vacating to Golden Wood, getting that second town center up, and I don't think the timing's terrible.
Yeah, it's not terrible. It's just, didn't rush it up, didn't have that Offering Chapel, so it was going to be... Oh, coming in, though, gets another Vil kill. Might lose another one on the run back here. Spear's going to push him off, though. Does lose the one knight, though, so that will stop those kind of one-shot run-ins from happening. So won't have to worry about that anymore. Obviously, if he gets into here and hits a Vil, he'll be able to kill another one, but he'll probably lose the knight with the spearman there. So definitely a, slows him down just a little bit. Does queue a second one, because, again, that's really important to be able to just one-shot those Vils and run off. And one knight needs that extra little hit. Especially with no blacksmith out, you definitely need that second knight charge damage. But drops 3 archery ranges. Looking in that cool little square for that keep to drop. Yeah, and OpDVlaM looking like he's just kind of chilling. Got some production going down, but doesn't look like he's planning on harping too hard on this, and probably wants to just get straight to castle.
Yeah. Yep. Stephen Loki also put that out in chat too, when you're putting that little square down. Perfect for a nice little keep position. And this is one of the reasons why French has that positive win rate against HRE, probably since this game's inception, is a lot of things that they do just counteract some of the unique things that HRE does. With French going into Castle Age, getting the Arbalettrier, he's massing his buildings and able to do that. hanging out with his food, 810 food, 300 gold. So it looks like he's trying to get up to Castle Age as well. So he's just kind of, you know, making sure he's got his production buildings, making sure he can get the crossbowmen he needs, because he's expecting some HRE men-at-arms, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Or even just HRE knights to match your own. Although, you know, technically you lose in a one-on-one fight. HRE well known for their ability to sustain those type of units fairly well. But yeah, outpost on the backside here, you need decent vision on what's going on. Raid coming in though, denies it. Just barely missed the charge damage. Just Spearman preventing that charge from coming through. This is nice, got pulled back. 8 on gold is rallying them. It looks like more to food and wood. Try and get those farms going on this Aachen. Backside, though, does see him, so he's running his guys. And they pull off once they see the knights. So, yeah, just real solid defensive play.
And this is one of the things as an HRE player like yourself, that you know one of the weak points of HRE is, and I do want to point out Royal Institute going up for DeftJackal on the western side of his archery ranges, but usually for the HRE, you get to a point where, yes, they're in the middle of farm transition, so their food eco isn't 100%, dropping the Regnitz Cathedral as well from OpDVlaM. He's going to have to either get enough wood to get all of his farms around Aachen Chapel, which he's trying to do incrementally, but he might need to bolster his food economy and compete with the French in Castle Age, look for an outside guy, a food resource that becomes a lot more raidable.
But yeah, adding in more farms, and I think he's going to be able to stabilize with farms here pretty well off of this one little wood line. And obviously he'll have to move out to something a little more exposed, but by the time that happens, he's going to be in Castle, be out and getting those relics. How do you feel about the Royal Institute here? So my understanding is this. You build Royal Institute when you have knights already from a feudal, and you go up to like try and, you know, use this as the break point to kind of close out that game from that feudal fight. But if you don't, then you go guild hall. I don't know how you feel about it or if that's even true. But
well, I think about it a little differently. With the Royal Institute, I think about not only, yes, having enough knights is important, but am I going to win this game in Castle Age? If you're trying to win this game in Castle Age, then the Royal Institute's probably your best bet, because you're going to be able to get the Royal Bloodlines. You're going to be able to get these sick, awesome Arbaletier upgrades with Gambesons, increasing melee armor by 5, which is currently in production, and crossbow stirrups, which is a fantastic technology. Basically having a network of castles for just your Arbaletier, which is fantastic. And that, hopefully, if you think those upgrades can snowball you to a Castle Age win, then that's what you should go for. So it depends on where, how you feel in the game, and especially for an HRE. Dealing with an HRE Imperial Age probably isn't a good idea for the French player. So going Royal Institute, I'm okay with that decision.
Yeah, I think it's not a terrible idea. But yeah, I mean that upgrade alone makes it so the horsemen aren't going to be able to just insta kill these things. You have to go archers, but then they can use their pavis. Which then, you know, make it difficult for range units to kill them. So the Arbaletier are a pretty darn good unit, I would say. Especially once you can get, like you said, if you go that Royal Institute and get that upgrade, they become very difficult to deal with. Essentially, mangonels is kind of the way to deal with them, because they have to move, which then sets the pavis on cooldown and things like that. So, you know, but also with the knights, then it makes it difficult. So then as the HRE, you got to go like, what, spearmen, which they don't shred too hard, but they still do, you know, fat 12 damage. It will depend on the comp decisions and how well we can kind of read what the opponent is doing. To peek at some of the vision here. So we got some scoutal combat going on here. He's going to run a couple knights up there to stop this from coming in. OpDVlaM with 2 on the way. One of them obviously going to be denied. The other one being, a third one being camped by DeftJackal here. And then we can kind of peek at what's going on here. Scout on the back. Roll low. Nice loud noises. But yeah, OpDVlaM doing the standard HRE thing where you kind of just don't see what's going on the map. You've lost map control to the French, which is super standard, and it makes it difficult to go out and get those relics. We'll be able to get 2 of them, which isn't terrible. You like to see 3 at least. Knights coming in. He's going to lose one for sure. That one should make it out. It'll be close. Not quite. The Giga Chad range on that town center, I guess, really helped out.
I mean, obviously it would have helped for DeftJackal if that, veteran Road Knight upgrade came in, which it was a little too late before it, so that extra range armor not going to be able to get there for him. But now with the French, now you're kind of in a hard spot now too, because you do a lot of things like HRE in terms of that Gaia food resource and doing your farm transition. French, it's a little bit difficult to do a farm transition compared to some other civilizations. DeftJackal on the east side has this berry patch all the way over here with no outpost, no anything. So if OpDVlaM does see it, that's a lot of dead villagers. And those deer ran out on DeftJackal's second town center. So now he's got to be thinking about food and how he's going to get any kind of military presence on the map.
Yeah, and you can see he's got a metric shit ton of villagers here on the wood, and he's going to very likely be trying to do a farm transition himself. There's the mill there. He's dropping down more production buildings. Yeah, army numbers relatively stable, but yeah, I think the spearmen are actually a pretty decent choice, because you're not giving the arbaletry the bonus damage. They're still doing, 9 damage a pop, and with that melee armor, you're doing about 3, but with 80 health, you can mass this cheap unit, throw them away. They're not going to get, stomped by those knights. And yeah, so we're going to have to kind of see how this plays out with the unit compositions and see who can kind of come out on top. But yeah, with the HRE, I mean, looking pretty fat here. I'd like to see, obviously, see farms here, maybe get rid of that. More stables on the backside, maybe looking to match those knights. Horsemen coming out, maybe. Yeah, horsemen, some men-at-arms coming through.
Well, it looks like DeftJackal is doing a completely anti-French thing and building barracks. I haven't seen a French barracks since probably, I don't know, William's Conqueror of Normandy. But this, these French barracks adding spearmen is going to help him with the horsemen. I was so curious to see when DeftJackal was going to add some kind of melee, some kind of front line with his army comp. I did not think he was going to pick spearmen, but I completely understand why he does it, because those horsemen are basically going to be the bane of the Arbaletrier's existence. As long as he has something to counteract that, the Arbaletrier are going to have free range against the spearmen and the men-at-arms that OpDVlaM is starting to make.
Yeah, and with, they do 22 damage versus these guys, even with the 6 armor they have. They're going to be doing pretty good. But that ram, not going to do a whole lot, especially into those horsemen, but as Draxadu said, Swabia coming down, and we have 16 villagers moving out to what I assume is this upper gold. Swabia going to be cranking onto this wood line, and you're going to be able to just do HRE things. And hitting Imperial is going to be super, super helpful. Get those Imperial upgrades on those horsemen. Start getting some of those, maybe even some of those damage techs going. But yeah, DeftJackal had his Arbaletrier out there without the spearmen, and so they're going to get pushed back in, and it looks like OpDVlaM's going to wrestle back some map control.
Yeah, huge mistake from DeftJackal. He wasn't getting into the spearman transition yet. Little Wololo coming in.
Oh, that was so close.
Not an HRE Wololo, surprisingly, but yeah, it took a while for those spearmen to come in for DeftJackal, a little bit because he had to transition with the barracks, and a little bit because he's doing a farm transition at the same time. His food permitted only at 500, not able to mass the military production that he needs. And now that OpDVlaM is Imperial, a lot of the Royal Institute technologies, although yes, they're benefiting you in Castle Age, they're a little bit null and void right now, because you're going to get to the Imperial Age soon if you don't lose. And if you do that, you would really miss having some guild hall.
Yeah. Yeah. Hasn't actually gotten bloodlines. Or cantled saddles, because he's not going for knights. So then it kind of begs the question, like, you wanted it for the Arbaletrier, which is kind of an interesting choice. I don't know how you feel about that, is the call here.
Well, I understand why he did it against an HRE player, right? Just because it kind of eliminates the fact that men-at-arms exist for the HRE player, which is something, that's difficult for them to deal with, but I think it was just he didn't have anything to combat these horsemen, and now, with OpDVlaM of 24 horsemen, he's going to face these rams and some of these spearmen, which the men-at-arms will be able to take care of, and some of the spearmen back here. So these arbaletiers are probably going to get encircled.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're definitely going to get encircled. The spearmen going to do a decent job of taking out this horseman. Horsemen not nearly as good at fighting spearmen as the knights are, but the sheer numbers alone, they're onto the backside, shredding through them. You can just see the damage coming out so heavy. Those rams basically doing nothing. We got even a prelate in here doing some work. A handful of men-at-arms to kind of just soak up some damage. Yeah, and it's just going to clean up this army on this front side, 31-6. The battering rams pushing in, and that's a lot of investment for DeftJackal just down the drain.
Yeah, honestly, if I'm OpDVlaM, you won from that.
Yeah.
And now your
100%.
your transition starts to think about, okay, now how do I not lose this game? Let's just make sure I don't throw this game. He has his Imperial Age upgrades, which is fantastic. He has a villager improvement just because of Palace of Swabia. He's got 10 extra villagers there. A lot of his villagers in the back, as I'm seeing all of these farmlands, are powered by the word of Christ, with Chapel having that prelate in the background. So honestly, as long as he keeps spreading out units and as long as he pop caps himself, he's going to be able to steamroll over the French base.
Yeah. French doing a good job on relics. They have 3, HRE has 2. That's kind of that map control from earlier coming into play. But yeah, the cheaper production is going to help balance out some of that, but is going just mass spearmen or arbaletrier. But I think OpDVlaM kind of has his number already. So doing a tech switch right now is a little late, though, since all your spots are kind of filled up. But yeah, spearmen will repel this, but then this kind of makes it easier for some men-at-arms or even Landsknechts to, 1 or 2 Landsknechts into a front line of spearmen will just melt through them. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what OpDVlaM goes for, but OpDVlaM definitely winning, is ahead by just about 20 villagers thanks to Mr. Swabia and his very high birth rates in his country. Yeah, 51-31 on the army. As you mentioned before, we got mills up the wazoo, walled off with some wooden walls. Obviously not like the best defensible positions, but you're in his face now, so you're less worried about it. Did drop the did get the relics out of the way, so there's only one. Looks like maybe we'll transfer him to a new one finally. But yeah, delayed some of that gold income from DeftJackal, sitting on a decent pile of gold. Because arbaletier, what do they cost? They cost 32 gold with that discount, so you're not, you don't need the gold income you'd need with knights. So I'd be kind of curious if he decides to switch to something else, or if he just kind of tries to hardball. What would you like to see? Would you like to see him just kind of mass a big pile of guys again, or?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for DeftJackal right now is the macro issue, like you alluded to, with the gold that he has. In terms of army comp for French, you're seeing that OpDVlaM is making more men-at-arms, and you see that he has horsemen as well. I think you have enough spearmen to kind of make sure your arbaletier are covered. And based on the army comp that OpDVlaM has, obviously knights are a good choice that DeftJackal can make, but that is a huge transition that takes so much time.
Yeah.
I don't know, siege maybe. Haven't seen any siege this game. Having a siege advantage in some of these fights could help tilt the scale in DeftJackal's favor.
Yeah, I think, oh, tower? We've got a little tower battle going up. Shivs coming out. Horsemen coming in to back it up, and those are going to do a lot more damage than those little shivs will. They will get 5 of them in there, but with all those horsemen, all those vills are going to die, and that's going to feel really bad for DeftJackal on this last remaining gold mine that he is going for.
And those are villagers he could not afford to lose. We already know. He knows that he's facing up against Swabia, so he's in a villager deficit, and that just kept climbing higher and higher. There's about a 35 villager deficit now.
Good raid on the front side, though, is losing some vills. As the emergency repairs coming in, the vills are going to start tapping on that, too. Stopping some of that, burning down. But the Swabia needs to garrison some of these. Garrison. Looks like he's going to lose most of them, but with the Swabia, they're easily replaceable. So it's about even on the Vill kills, but the army going to come in and wipe this army fairly easily, especially under both of these town centers. One of them being that Swabia. yeah, and they're just going to be able to clean this up, get a nice little surround. A huge pile of guys. I would actually like to take over and see what the army count here is. So we got 10 Landsknechts, we got 34 men-at-arms, 21 horsemen, just kind of a smorgasbord of stuff. Out-ecoing, out-teching, and really not out-teching too hard, though, because he hasn't really gotten a lot of his blacksmith upgrades. But is going to be able to have more elite units than DeftJackal, who has pseudo-elite units. Doesn't have official ones, just has some of those bonus upgrades. The keep, not in a super good spot here to stop anything from happening, but this backup keep in the base will stop any official game-ending things without some siege. But as you said, he couldn't afford to lose those villas. Currently has 30 idle with 80 in the bank, 40 idle. He has 40 eco right now. Not looking super good for DeftJackal.
And I would argue, when you talk about the siege and the keeps, I would argue for OpDVlaM it doesn't matter. Even though DeftJackal has boiling oil on some of these keeps, there's just too many units you'd be able to siege them down anyway.
Yep. So they, be able to siege him down with those tanky men-at-arms he has. But, yeah, gonna take out some more of that eco, so Ethan's going to lose that relic stuff. And even if he fends this off, I mean, the damage is done, right? He's still got units knocking at his door. It's 88 to 20. He's just constantly streaming more units across that map. As we take a peek on this backside, wrapping around. On this gold, isn't on any gold himself. Has some farms back here, kind of a saving grace, but yeah, just isn't really going to have a whole lot in his gas tank, as it were.
Well, it's the idle time too, right? Like we've basically throughout that minute that you were talking about the game situation, he had 30 some idle villagers through like the entirety of the time.
Yeah.
We're kind of just, even though we got to be unbiased casters and everything, we're just kind of waiting for a GG to get tapped.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a bias or just reading the game state, but DeftJackal hanging in there. It's the last game of the Swiss round. Wants to make it a good ending. Hold on as long as he possibly can, but there's no Chinese Fire Lancer cheese coming on this map. And DeftJackal is just drowning in yellow units. More going down. 56 Vil kills, 57, 58. Yeah, down to 56 with 13 idle. Under half the economy again. Easily replaceable by OpDVlaM with that Swabby as well. So even if you got counter damage done, it's basically null and void at this point. And while, again, he's not doing a landmark victory, he is massing another huge pile of units, and eventually we'll just be able to get there.
Yeah, I mean, economy pretty much untouched. Look at how much food per minute OpDVlaM has been flirting with the 3,000 food per minute in an HRE base that not only has 107 villagers, but obviously with most of them being inspired too, there's just from an economic standpoint, it's very difficult to deal with this Imperial HRE with how many villagers they have and how many are getting inspired.
Yeah, I mean, he's dropping down 6 more stables. He has, I don't even know how many farms. I mean, there's 32 there. Shift click, see if we can grab more of them. 69 farms and what I could click here. Nice. So it's like into the 70s, well into the 70s on the farms. But yeah, 69 is a nice number for sure. Yep, he's going to start burning down some stuff. That's 1, that's 2, and the third one is right under the keep, so if he wants to get that victory, he'll have to destroy that keep. But does tap out. GG to DeftJackal. OpDVlaM taking the fattest dub for the HRE. My boy. Yeah, and I think that I would say that as we look at the villager count here, you can kind of see OpDVlaM lost a few.